Hello children, hope all of us are doing good. Now the topic for today is separation of substances, and the key elements in this chapter are pure substances and mixture, need to separate impurities from mixture and the methods of separation. हमारे environment में इतनी सारी चीज़ें हैं, लेकिन कुछ चीज़ें प्योर हैं और कुछ चीज़ों को हम कहते हैं कि ये मिक्सचर हैं. फिर उसके अलावा कुछ चीज़ें ऐसी हैं कि मिक्सचर में या तो चीज़ें ऐसी हैं कि सारी की सारी प्योर चीज़ें मिलकर के मिक्सचर बनी हैं, या फिर कुछ चीज़ें मिक्सचर ऐसे बनती हैं कि उनमें कुछ इम्प्योरिटीज़ यानी जो चीज़ें हमें नहीं चाहिए वो भी मिल जाती हैं. अब इन सब चीज़ों को अलग करना यानी कि सेपरेशन का प्रोसेस भी होता है जो हमें पता होना चाहिए. अब इतनी सारी चीज़ें हमारे आसपास हैं, जैसे कि अगर हम हवा लें, हवा एक किस्म की नहीं है, हवा भी अलग अलग गैसेस को मिक्स करके बनती है. अब वो सारी गैसेस तो हमें नहीं चाहिए. इसी तरह से अगर हम मिट्टी लें, मिट्टी में भी बड़ी सारी चीज़ों का मिक्सचर है. पानी भी एकदम से अलग अलग कंपोनेंट से बना हुआ है. कोई भी चीज़ हम अपने आसपास देखें तो या तो प्योर है या फिर mixture है. Now we are acquainted with large number of materials such as air, soil, water, rocks, sugar, common salt, milk, flowers, vegetables and fruits. In many cases, we need to separate useful components from unwanted or sometimes harmful components before we can use them. For example, tea leaves are separated from the liquid after preparing tea. We peel off skin of banana and orange before eating them. Now these substances to be separated may be particles of different sizes or materials. These may be solid, liquid or even gases. Different processes are used for separating substances with different properties. Let us know what a substance is. A substance is a pure form of matter, whether solid, liquid or gas, having a unique composition that does not vary from sample to sample. Example, water. There are many other substances such as air, sea, water, soil, etc. which contain more than one component. These substances are called mixtures. Now these substances we need to purify are mixtures. Let us learn the difference between pure substance and mixture by the following activity. Now take a teaspoonful each of sugar, common salt and soil in 3 different dishes marked A, B and C respectively. Observe the contents of these dishes one by one with a magnifying glass. You will find that the color, shape and size of all the crystals of sugar are the same. Similarly, the crystals of common salt are also alike. In dish C, which contains soil, you may find particles of different colors, shapes and sizes. These may be clay particles, grass and germs. एक ही किस्म के components या तत्व से बनी हुई चीज़ को हम कहते हैं कि ये प्योर है, जैसे कि गोल्ड, जैसे कि चीनी, जैसे कि नमक. और अलग अलग कंपोनेंट्स या तत्वों से मिलकर के जो चीज़ बनती है उसको कहते हैं मिक्सचर. हम जो दूध पीते हैं या हम जो नींबू पानी पीते हैं वो मिक्सचर के कैटेगरी में आते हैं. सो लेट अस लुक एट द डिफरेंस बिटवीन प्योर सब्सटेंस एंड मिक्सचर. प्योर सब्सटेंस कंसिस्ट्स ऑफ ओनली वन टाइप ऑफ कंपोनेंट. Hence, a pure substance cannot be separated in its components by any physical means. For example, gold, silver, water, salt, sugar, etc. Now, mixture. The substances which contain more than one component are called mixtures. Components of a mixture can be separated by physical means. For example, rock salt, lemonade, milk, soil, etc. Now, an important point here is that pure substances may be single element or compound. For example, sodium is a pure substance or element, but its compound sodium chloride, which is also known as common salt, is composition of sodium and chloride, which is also a pure substance. Now we can do another activity here. Take 3 clean 250 milliliter glass tumblers. Mark them P, Q and R. Fill 3/4 part of these tumblers with water. Add 2 spoonfuls of sugar, common salt and soil to tumbler P, Q and R respectively. Stir the contents of these tumblers with separate glass rods. Keep these glass tumblers on the table. Observe the contents of these tumblers after some time. Now we can see that in glass tumbler P and Q, the sugar and common salt have dissolved. There is no visible undissolved particles in these glass tumblers, while in the glass tumbler R, some materials such as grass and clay particles are floating along with some germs on the surface of water. The heavier particles of sand etc. are settled down at the bottom of the glass tumbler. We can see the floating and settled particles more clearly with a magnifying glass. Thus, soil is a mixture of different substances that can be separated. Now, the process of deliberately mixing food materials with cheap, unwanted, harmful things is called food adulteration. It leads to many health hazards. अब जो हम खाना खाते हैं, ज़रूरी नहीं कि जो हम खाना खरीदें वो प्योर फॉर्म में हो, कुछ ना कुछ उसमें मिलावट हो सकती है. अब वो मिलावट को हम कई बार तो धो करके निकाल देते हैं, या जैसे दाल चावल जैसी चीज़ें हैं उनमें से हाथ से कंकड़ पत्थर निकाल के भी हम उसको साफ़ कर लेते हैं, या फिर जैसे कुछ हमने कोई फल सब्ज़ी खानी है और उसका छिलका हमें नहीं खाना तो हम उसको उतार के खा सकते हैं. ये तो बड़ा हो गया आसान तरीका. लेकिन अगर आप देखें कि जो हम हवा में से जो ऑक्सीजन को इनहेल कर रहे हैं, जो हमारे जीने के लिए ज़रूरी है, अब इस हवा में कितने सारे डस्ट पार्टिकल्स हो सकते हैं, कितने सारे अलग अलग हार्मफुल गैसेस हो सकती हैं, ये भी अब हमें नुकसान पहुंचाती हैं. तो क्या हम इनको भी अलग करके सिर्फ प्योर ऑक्सीजन इनहेल कर सकते हैं? अब आजकल तो सब मास्क यूज़ करते हैं तो वो भी पॉसिबल है. लेकिन ज़रूरी बात ये है कि बड़ी सारी चीज़ें जो हैं जो कि मिक्सचर फॉर्म में आती हैं उनमें इम्प्योरिटीज़ या गलत या हार्मफुल सब्सटेंसेस ज़्यादा होते हैं. इसकी वजह से हमें उन चीज़ों को अलग करना, सेपरेट करना ज़रूरी हो जाता है. Now let us look at the need to separate impurities from mixture. The food items we eat sometimes are pure, but sometimes they are contaminated with very harmful impurities. So to make an impure substance pure, we need various methods of separation. Fruits and vegetables can be used just by washing them or by peeling them. But materials such as wheat, rice, pulses, gram, spices obtained from nature cannot be used as such. They may contain dust particles, husk, insects, small pieces of stones and other unwanted and harmful substances. Similarly, in a developing country like ours, a large number of industries are coming up. The smoke from industrial chimneys causes air pollution. So if carbon particles and ash particles from smoke are removed, we can save air from being polluted. If impurities are not removed from the impure mixture, many people may become the victim of fatal diseases. So it is necessary to separate the components of a mixture to remove harmful components as well as to get pure and useful components. Now the table given below lists some of the common mixtures and the diseases caused by the presence of impurities in them. So like the mixture of smoke might contain carbon or ash particles as impurities and it can cause respiratory disorder. Then mustard oil might contain the impurities of argemon oil and it can cause nervous disorder. Then arhar dal might contain kesari dal as impurities and it can cause paralysis. Then water of rivers and canals might contain dust particles and germs as impurities and they can cause cholera. Let us now look at the methods of separation. Now depending upon the nature of impurity, various methods of separation are used. The properties which are different for different substances are generally used for separating the components of a mixture. अब चीजों को सेपरेट करने के अलग अलग तरीके हैं, जिनमें से सबसे पहला है हैंड पिकिंग। जैसे कि मान लो हमने कोई दाल चावल या कोई भी ऐसी चीज साफ करनी है, तो हाथ से ही जो इम्प्योरिटीज हैं उनको निकाल के हम अलग कर सकते हैं। या फिर मान लो कि हमें कोई एक किस्म के फूल अलग करने हैं, जब बहुत सारे ग्रुप में पड़े हैं, वो भी हम हाथों से कर सकते हैं। तो पहली क्या हो गई हमारा मेथड, हैंड पिकिंग। सो लेट अस बिगिन विद हैंड पिकिंग। If the impurity to be separated from the mixture is different in color, size and shape, it can be picked up manually. This method of separation of impurities by hand is known as hand picking. It is generally used to separate small pieces of stone, husk and grains from wheat, rice, pulses and sometimes from spices. If ratio of these undesirable components is large, then such a method would require a lot of time and would be quite laborious. Now, bring some wheat grains from your house. Now, spread them on a sheet of paper. Do you find only one kind of grains on the sheet paper? Or are there pieces of stones, husks, broken seeds and particles of any other grain in it? Now, remove with your hand the pieces of stones, husk or any other grain from it. हमारा दूसरा तरीका है चर्निंग। घर में देखा होगा ना मम्मी को दही को ऐसे ऐसे वो बिलो बिलो करके उसमें से मक्खन निकालती हैं, इसको कहते हैं चर्निंग। अब चर्निंग में क्या है कि आप बड़ी चीज किसी चीज से ना इस तरह के एक्शन से आप चीजों को अलग करते हैं। उससे क्या है कि हल्की चीज जो है वो अलग हो जाती है और लिक्विड या जो हैवी चीज है वो अलग हो जाती है। Now we come to the next process and that is churning. This process is used to separate cream from milk, butter from curd and to remove dirt from clothes in washing machines. When curd is churned, butter is separated as upper layer. The lower layer obtained is buttermilk. Thus the lighter particle of the suspended solid can be separated from a liquid using this technique. This is also known as centrifugation. This process is widely used in dairies to separate cream from milk. अब इसी तरह से एक और मेथड है लोडिंग का। लोडिंग में क्या है कि मान लो कोई लिक्विड है जिसको कि हमें साफ करना है, तो हम उसमें कोई एक फिटकरी जैसी चीज का ना एक पीस डाल देते हैं। उससे क्या होता है कि जितनी भी इम्प्योरिटीज हैं, जैसे कि मिट्टी हो गई या किसी भी किस्म की इम्प्योरिटी ऐसी है, वो जल्दी ही नीचे की तरफ सेटल हो जाती है और साफ पानी ऊपर रह जाता है। नेक्स्ट कम्स द प्रोसेस ऑफ लोडिंग। दिस प्रोसेस इज यूज्ड टू मेक मडी वाटर क्लियर। In rainy season, potable water becomes muddy. Such a muddy water can be made clear by loading. The process in which an external agent is added to bring the process of sedimentation is known as loading. In this method, a piece of alum or fitkari is tied with a thread and swirled in muddy water. This water is allowed to stand for some time. After some time, all the impurities are settled down at the bottom and water becomes clear. Now, the reason behind this is the mud particles get loaded by the alum particles and become heavy. Hence, they settle down at the bottom of the container. The water thus becomes clear and can be decanted for further use. Now, take some muddy water in a beaker. Shake the beaker well. Now, take a piece of alum and tie it in a thread. Now, swirl the alum in the beaker for some time. Leave the beaker undisturbed. So, after some time, you will see that the mud has settled at the bottom of the beaker. We often sprinkle water before sweeping a dusty room so that the dust on the floor may not rise. Here also, water is used to load the dust particles. Now, let's look at the method of threshing. You must have seen bundles of wheat and paddy stalks lying in the fields after harvesting the crop. Now, stalks are dried in sun before grains are separated from them. The process of beating out the grains from the harvested crop plants is called threshing. In the traditional method of threshing, the harvested crop is spread on the ground in a small area, and various cattle like buffaloes, bullocks or camels are made to walk over it again and again in a circle. Now during threshing, the leaves and stems of the crop plants are converted into very small pieces called hay, which is used as fodder for animals. Nowadays, threshing is done with a motorized machine called thresher. Now we will look at winnowing. You might have seen a farmer separating wheat grains from husk in a field. The farmer, standing on a high platform, simply allows the mixture of wheat and husk to fall down from a height. The wind has very little effect on the grain because they are heavy, so it forms a heap vertically downwards on the ground. The husk, being light, is blown away from the wheat. Now it forms a heap at a distance away from the heap of wheat. This process is known as winnowing. You might have seen the process of winnowing being used at home or a flour mill, that is an atta chakki. Now the next method or process is sieving. It is the process in which any mixture is passed through porous material. The smaller component is left over the sieve. A sieve with very small holes is used for sieving wheat flour or different flours for different purposes at home. Depending upon the type of particles to be separated, sieves of different hole sizes are used. Sieving of sand is a very common sight, especially at the site of building construction. Now bring a sieve and a small quantity of wheat flour from home to the class. Sieve the flour to separate any unwanted substances from it. Now make a fine powder of chalk pieces and mix it with the flour. You will not be able to separate flour and the powdered chalk by sieving. Now let us look at sedimentation and decantation. This method is used to separate a solid liquid mixture in which the solid is heavier than the liquid. Example, a mixture of sand and water. If you allow the mixture to stand still for some time, the solid will settle down at the bottom and the liquid will remain over it. This process is called sedimentation, and the solid layer at the bottom is called the sediment. The liquid over the sediment is known as the supernative liquid. Now you can pour out the supernative liquid carefully into another vessel, leaving behind the sediment. In the laboratory, you may pour out the liquid using a glass rod to avoid spilling. This process is called decantation. Now take a beaker of around 100 ml capacity or a glass tumbler half filled with water. Mix some sand in it, stir the water thoroughly. Now keep the beaker undisturbed for some time. You can see that the sand, being heavy, has settled down at the bottom of the beaker. Now pour the clear liquid into another beaker without disturbing the layer of sand. So decantation can also be used for separating two immiscible liquids such as oil and water. Such liquids do not mix with each other and form separate layers. Take about 25 ml of cooking oil and about 25 ml of water and mix them together in a beaker. Stir the liquid with the glass rod. Now keep the beaker undisturbed for some time and you will observe that the cooking oil forms a separate layer above the water, and you can separate the upper layer of the liquid by decantation process. Next we have the filtration method. You have seen at home that after preparing tea, it is passed through a strainer made of wire mesh. Since tea leaves are bigger than the holes of the strainer, therefore they are retained on the strainer, which works as filter. This process is known as filtration. So filtration is used to separate solid impurities from a liquid. Many materials such as cotton, glass, wool, sand and filter paper can be used as filters. The choice of the filter depends upon the size of particle of the impurity to be removed. Now an important application of filtration is the purification of water for drinking. River or lake water is passed over layers of sand and other materials called the filter beds to filter off suspended particles before the water is sent through pipes to houses. Special water filters are often used in schools, offices and homes nowadays. These water filters remove undesirable materials from tap water to make it safe for drinking. Let us perform an activity here. Fold a circular filter paper to make it into a semicircle. Fold it again and open the folded paper in such a way that it forms a cone. Take a mixture of water and sulfur in a beaker. Place the funnel in a funnel stand. Make the funnel wet with a little water and fit the folded filter paper cone in the funnel. Place another beaker below the funnel. Pour the mixture slowly on the filter paper with the help of a glass rod so that the liquid stands below the edge of the cone. Now the water collected in the beaker is clear and free from sulfur. The water collected is called filtrate. The solid sulfur is left on the filter paper and it is called the residue. The filter paper is gently removed from the funnel and is dried to recover the sulfur. Now let us look at the process of evaporation. The process of separating salt from its solution by removing water is called evaporation. This process is in fact used on a large scale to obtain common salt. Seawater or lake water contains common salt. Seawater is collected in open shallow beds at high tide. These shallow beds are called lagoons. In the sun's heat, the water evaporates and the salt is left behind. The salt is then collected in heaps. Now take a beaker half filled with water and add 1 teaspoonful of common salt to it and stir the solution till it dissolves completely. Transfer the solution from the beaker to a porcelain dish. Heat the solution over the flames of a spirit lamp with constant stirring with glass rod till all the water has evaporated. Stop heating, cool the porcelain dish and observe the contents. What you will find is the common salt that has been left behind. So what are the key takeaways from this chapter? Pure substance consists of only one type of component. The substances which contain more than one component are called mixtures. The method of separation of impurities by hand is known as handpicking. The process in which an external agent is added to bring the process of sedimentation is known as loading. The process of beating out the grains from harvested crop plants is called threshing. Filtration is used to separate solid impurities from a liquid. The process by which liquids on heating convert into vapor form is called evaporation. So I hope all the points in this chapter are clear and we can now answer questions based on this topic.